So we've gotten our measurement to show how much room we've got for this thing to take up. Now we're going to measure from the face of the transmission to the face of this bearing without spacers in it, so we know how much space this thing is taking. Put a straight edge on there, hold it flat, and just measure to the face. And what we come up with is 2.648. So that's the amount of space that this thing will take up inside the bell housing. Your throwout bearing, your hydraulic throwout bearing, comes with a set of shims. They're little stackable gizmos like this. And these each represent 60 thousandths of shim. So after we get our numbers, if we determine that we need to move the throwout bearing closer to the fingers for it to operate properly, we're just going to slide these shims on the front here and stack them up 60 thousandths at a time until we reach the number that we need, and then just slide the throwout bearing right back on top of them. Alright, we've determined that the transmission requires 3 spacers to space out the throwout bearing, so we're just going to slide those on. Then we're going to make sure that the bleeder line is out the fork hole, slide this up, and just seat it on the transmission. And this fork again is going to go over the stud. Then we're going to take this cap off and apply a feed line. Now, one thing you got to know about these throwout bearings, they are full of fluid. They're pre-bled for you to make it easier to bleed the system when you're putting it in your car. So when I take this cap off, I want to make sure to get the feed line on very quickly so I don't lose fluid. I also want to make sure that the bleeder line is tight and closed so that no air can get in. That way there's a vacuum on the system, kind of like putting your finger on top of a straw. It's going to keep the fluid inside. We'll just take that cap off, put the feed line in here and make sure that it's finger tight so you're not cross threading it, and then snug it up with a wrench. I'm sure some customers are wondering what the torque specs on this are. There are no torque specs. Just get it snug and make sure you don't overpower it. And just snug the bleed line as well to make sure it's on there well. When you're putting your hydraulic system in and you're putting your lines in, you may have your lines routed very close to high heat sources like a manifold or a header pipe. Of course, you don't want your fluid to boil just like a brake system. System won't work if the fluid's too hot. So one thing you can do if you've got a space problem and this is going to run too close to a heat source is pick up some heat sheathing at a local big box parts store. And this is just a tube, and you slide it over your line before you install your line, and that's just going to shroud the line so that it doesn't pick up too much heat.